Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to Connecting the Dots. It's April 1st as we're recording this.
Oh, wow.
So if anything we talk about sounds a little too good to be true, maybe double check those sources.
Yeah, maybe wait till tomorrow. Haha.
Exactly. But really, though, we've got some big tech news to break down today.
Yeah, for sure.
Some stories that really could have a big impact on, basically everyone.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole point of tech, right? It touches like every part of our lives these days.
It really does. So I'm excited to dive in. And as always, I'm here to kind of like set the stage.
Right.
And then our expert is here to help us connect the dots and, really understand what this all means.
Exactly. I'm here to add that context and analysis so we can all see the bigger picture.
All right, well, let's get to it. Our first big story is about TSMC. That's Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
Okay.
They just announced that they are going to invest $100 billion.
$100 billion in the U.S.
Wow, that is a lot of money.
That's a huge number.
So what's going on here? Why is a company from Taiwan investing so much in the U.S.?
Well, I think this is a really interesting story because it kind of shows how important semiconductors have become.
Right.
They're these tiny little chips that are in everything from smartphones to cars.
So refrigerators.
Yeah, and toasters, probably even
Yeah, pretty much everything.
And for a long time, most of these chips were made in Asia, places like Taiwan and China.
Right.
But in recent years, there's been a growing push to bring more of this manufacturing back to the U.S.
Like kind of a made in America push.
Exactly. And I think this investment from TSMC is a big part of that.
Okay, so this $100 billion is going to be used to build new factories.
Yes, specifically for making advanced semiconductors.
Okay, so how does this tie into what TSMC is already doing in the U.S.? They've already got projects going on in Arizona, right?
Right. They've already committed about $12 billion to a facility in Arizona.
Okay.
And then there's another $25 billion planned for a third factory there.
Yeah. So by 2030, they were already set to invest $65 billion just in Arizona.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And on top of that, they've also gotten up to $6.6 billion in grants from the U.S. government.
What, through the CTS Act?
Yes, through the CTS Act, which was passed last year, to encourage companies to build these kinds of factories in the U.S.
So it sounds like the government is really trying to incentivize this kind of domestic chip production.
Definitely. They're putting a lot of money behind it.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Because like you said, these chips are in everything.
Yeah, they're essential for so many industries.
And if something were to happen and we couldn't get those chips,
right,
it would be a big problem.
Like a major disruption to the economy.
Yeah. So President Trump actually weighed in on this TSMC announcement.
Yeah, saw that.
He talked about how these new factories would be making the most powerful AI chips in the world right here in America.
And he said it would create thousands of jobs.
High-paying jobs, too.
And he put TSMC's total U.S. investment now at like $165 billion.
Wow, that is a lot of money.
It really is.
So he's clearly really pushing this idea of bringing chip manufacturing back to the U.S.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He talked about how it's essential for economic security and national security.
Right, because we wouldn't have to rely on other countries for these crucial components.
Exactly. TSMC's CEO, C.C. Wei, also released a statement about this new investment.
Yeah, he talked about how their vision is becoming a reality in Arizona and how they plan to build even more factories here.
He said they would be hiring like 3,000 people to work at their Arizona facility.
That's a lot of new jobs.
Yeah, so this is definitely good news for the U.S. economy.
Right.
But the articles we read also mentioned that there's some uncertainty about whether TSMC will actually move its most advanced chip production to the U.S.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They've historically kept their most sophisticated chips in Taiwan.
Right. So this new investment is great, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the U.S. will be getting the absolute cutting-edge technology.
So it's kind of a wait-and-see situation?
Yeah. We'll have to see how it all plays out.
Okay, so we've got this massive investment from TSMC.
Yeah.
They're building new factories,
right,
creating jobs, but there's still some uncertainty about exactly what level of technology they'll be bringing to the U.S.
Yeah, that's a good summary.
Now, the sources we looked at also hinted at why this might be happening now.
Yeah, they pointed to some things that President Trump has said and done in the past.
Like what?
Well, remember how he threatened to put tariffs on computer chips and other products from China?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And he was really pushing hard on this idea of bringing manufacturing back to the U.S.
Right.
So some people are saying that TSMC's investment is partly a response to that.
Like a way to avoid those tariffs.
Yeah, or at least to kind of hedge their bets.
So it's not just about wanting to invest in the U.S.
It's also about trying to navigate this changing political landscape.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this isn't just happening with TSMC.
Right.
Apple recently announced that they're going to invest over $500 billion in the U.S. economy.
And create 20,000 new jobs.
And NVIDIA, another big chip company, has said that they might be affected by these tariffs and export controls.
Yeah, they make a lot of the chips that are used in AI and other things.
So this is all part of a bigger trend.
A really big shift in the global tech landscape.
Yeah. So it's interesting that President Trump has been pushing so hard for domestic chip manufacturing.
Right.
But he has also been critical of the CHIPS Act, which is the law that's providing those incentives for companies like TSMC.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed message.
So what does all this mean for us regular folks who just want to buy our smartphones and computers and cars?
Well, I think the biggest impact is going to be on supply chains.
Okay.
Remember how during the pandemic it was really hard to find certain electronics,
Oh, yeah.
like webcams and stuff? That was partly because of supply chain issues.
Right.
And a lot of those issues stem from the fact that so many of these chips were being made in just a few places.
Okay.
So if we have more chip manufacturing happening in the U.S.,
Right.
it could make those supply chains more resilient.
So, like, less likely to be disrupted.
Exactly. And that could mean that it's easier to find the products we want,
Okay.
and maybe even that the prices are a little bit lower.
Okay. So more stability and maybe even lower prices.
Yeah, that's the hope.
What about all this stuff we keep hearing about AI?
Oh, yeah, AI.
How does this chip manufacturing stuff tie into that?
Well, the chips that are used in AI are some of the most advanced chips out there.
Okay.
They require a lot of specialized knowledge and equipment to make. So if the U.S. is going to be a leader in AI,
Right.
it needs to have the capacity to make those chips.
So this investment from TSMC could be a big step in that direction.
Yeah, it could really help to accelerate the development of AI in the U.S.
And that could have a big impact on all sorts of things, like healthcare and transportation and,
Pretty much every industry.
yeah. Okay, so we've talked about TSMC and their big investment.
Yeah.
Now let's zoom out a little bit
Yeah.
and talk about some of the other things that President Trump has been doing related to tech and investment. One of the big things that came out in the news is this new office that he's creating within the Commerce Department.
Oh, yeah, the United States Investment Accelerator.
What a name.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, but what is it? What does it do?
Basically, it's going to be in charge of overseeing the CHIPS Act,
Oh, interesting.
which is kind of funny because he's been so critical of the CHIPS Act.
Yeah, it is kind of funny.
But anyway, the White House says that this new office is going to help speed up corporate investments in the U.S.
So they're trying to cut through the red tape.
Yeah, they want to make it easier for companies to invest here.
And they're specifically focused on attracting large-scale investments.
Right, they want the big companies to come here and build factories and create jobs.
Okay, so this investment accelerator is going to be working with companies,
Right.
helping them to navigate the regulatory process.
And helping them to access resources.
Like what kind of resources?
Well, things like land and water and energy.
Okay.
And they'll also be coordinating with different government agencies.
So it's kind of a one-stop shop for companies that are looking to invest in the U.S.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Now, this new office isn't the only thing that's happening.
Right.
There have been some other big announcements in the tech world recently.
Like that $500 billion Stargate project.
Oh, yeah, that's a crazy amount of money.
I know it's a huge investment in AI infrastructure.
With companies like OpenAI and Oracle and SoftBank involved.
That's going to be the backbone of the next generation of AI.
Yeah. And there's also DeMac Properties, who are investing $20 billion in AI data centers.
So there's a lot of money flowing into this space right now.
It's definitely a hot area. And it seems like President Trump is really engaged with all of this.
Oh, yeah, he's been meeting with a lot of tech leaders.
Like Tim Cook from Apple.
Right.
And after that meeting, Apple announced that they were going to increase their investment in the U.S.
Yeah, and Trump even suggested that it was partly because of those tariffs he's been talking about.
So again, it seems like those tariffs are really having an impact.
They're definitely a factor in a lot of these decisions.
Okay, so we've got this new investment accelerator.
Right.
And all this money flowing into AI.
And these big tech companies making big investments in the U.S.
And it all seems to be tied to this idea of making the U.S. more competitive in the global tech landscape.
Exactly.
Now, there was also one other thing that came up in our research that I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
It's not directly related to tech investment,
Okay.
but it's still something that could have a big impact. There was a report that President Trump might be considering an executive order to dissolve the Department of Education,
Oh,
which was later denied.
okay.
But he has said that he wants to bring more control over schools back to the states.
Right.
And he's also mentioned that student loans might be moved to a different department.
Like the Treasury or the SBA or maybe even Commerce.
Yeah, so even though this isn't directly related to tech,
Right.
it shows that there's potential for some really big changes happening across the government. Okay, now let's move on to something that I know a lot of you are excited about. The Nintendo Switch 2.
Oh, yes.
It's finally happening.
It's been a long time coming.
It has. They've been teasing us for years. But they officially announced it and said it's going to be released sometime in 2025.
That's exciting.
And there's a Nintendo Direct happening tomorrow, April 2nd, where they're going to reveal more details.
I can't wait to see what they show.
Me too.
Yeah.
They did release a first look trailer,
Oh, yeah.
and it looks like the Switch 2 is kind of an evolution of the original Switch.
Yeah. It still has that hybrid design.
So you can play it on your TV.
Or take it on the go.
But there are some noticeable design changes.
Like what?
Well, the screen is bigger.
Okay.
It's rumored to be 7.5 inches.
Wow, that's a big difference.
And it has thinner bezels.
So more screen, less border.
Exactly.
Oh.
And the kickstand is different, too.
Yeah, it runs across the whole back of the console now.
And it looks a lot sturdier.
That's a good improvement.
Yeah, because the kickstand on the original Switch was kind of flimsy.
It was.
And there's also a new button on the right Joy-Con.
Ooh, the mystery button.
Yeah, nobody knows what it does yet.
But everyone's speculating.
And the way that the Joy-Con's attached to the console is different, too.
Yeah, they're using magnets now instead of that rail system.
Which looks a lot smoother.
And apparently there's a patent that suggests that the Joy-Cons might have mouse-like functionality.
Wait, what? Mouse control on a Switch?
Yeah. It sounds weird, but think about the possibilities.
I mean, it could be really cool for certain types of games.
Like strategy games or puzzle games.
Yeah, and there were also images of a more traditional-looking controller.
Oh, yeah. Maybe a new Pro controller.
That would be awesome.
Especially for people who like to play more hardcore games.
Yeah. There's also a rumor that the Switch 2 will have proximity chat.
Really?
Yeah, where it, detects when your face is near the console.
That's kind of cool.
And it automatically turns on the microphone.
So you don't have to wear a headset.
Exactly.
That would be great for multiplayer games.
Yeah, and some people think that new button might be related to that.
Interesting.
So we'll have to see. Now, one of the big questions that people have is about backward compatibility.
Right. Will it play games from the original Stitch?
And the answer is yes.
Awesome.
Nintendo has confirmed that the Switch 2 will be able to play most of the games from the original Switch.
That's a huge relief.
It is, because a lot of people have built up big libraries of Switch games.
Yeah, I know I have.
And they don't want to have to start over.
Exactly.
And Nintendo Switch Online will also be available on the new system.
So you can still play online with your friends.
Yeah. Okay, so what about the tech specs? What kind of hardware is powering this new console?
Well, the rumors are that it's going to be using an NVIDIA T239 chip,
Okay.
which is a pretty powerful chip.
And they're aiming for performance that's similar to a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One?
That's a big step up from the original Switch.
Yeah, and there are also rumors that it will have 12 GBs of RAM
Wow, that's a lot of memory.
and 256 GBs of storage.
That's way more than the original Switch.
So it sounds like they're really beefing up the hardware.
Definitely.
Now, what about the resolution?
The big question.
Is it going to be 4K?
Well, that's what everyone wants to know. And it sounds like the answer is maybe.
Maybe?
Yeah, it seems like they're focusing more on 4K upscaling.
So not necessarily native 4K.
Right, but upscaling can still make games look really good on a 4K TV.
And some developers who have early access to the hardware haven't seen 4K output enabled yet.
So it's possible that it's still in development?
Or maybe they're just saving it for a surprise announcement.
Who knows?
We'll have to wait and see. Now, one thing that people are always concerned about with portable consoles is battery life.
Yeah, nobody wants a console that dies after an hour of playing.
And it sounds like the Switch 2 will have similar battery life to the current Switch.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, even though the new hardware is more powerful,
Right.
they're also making it more energy efficient.
So hopefully you'll still be able to get a few hours of playtime on a single charge.
Okay, so we've talked about the console itself.
Yeah.
Now, what about the dock?
Ah, yes, the dock.
The thing that you plug the console into to play on your TV.
Yeah.
It sounds like they've redesigned the dock for the Switch 2.
Yeah, it has softer edges now.
And it might have better airflow.
There was a leak that showed a grid pattern on the back of the dock.
which could be for ventilation.
Yeah, to help keep the console cool.
And there's also info about a more powerful charger.
A 60W charger.
So your old switch charger might not work.
Yeah, that's something to keep in mind.
And there have even been rumors of a wireless stock.
Wireless. That would be awesome.
It would?
No more cables.
Yeah, but that hasn't been confirmed yet.
So we'll have to wait and see.
Now, the big question that everyone wants to know, how much is it going to cost?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
And nobody knows for sure yet.
But the speculation online is all over the place.
I've seen numbers from $349 to $499.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
But Nintendo has said that they're thinking about affordability.
So hopefully they'll price it competitively.
Yeah, because they want to make sure that as many people as possible can buy it.
Right.
So what does all this mean for you as a gamer?
Well, if you're a fan of the Switch,
Yeah.
this new console looks like it's going to be a big upgrade.
Yeah, more power,
Better graphics,
a bigger screen,
more storage,
new ways to control the games.
and all of your old games will still work.
So it's a pretty compelling package.
Definitely.
All right, let's do a quick recap of everything we've talked about today.
Okay.
We started with TSMC and their massive investment in the U.S.
$100 billion.
and how that's part of a bigger trend of bringing chip manufacturing back to the U.S. Then we talked about President Trump's initiatives to attract investment.
Like the investment accelerator.
And the focus on AI.
And the potential for a national Bitcoin reserve.
And how all of that could affect the economy and jobs. And then we finished up with the Nintendo Switch 2.
The next generation of gaming.
So, yeah, a lot to unpack today.
It was a busy news day.
It was. But I think it's all really interesting and important stuff.
Yeah, because it shows how technology is changing the world.
And how those changes are going to affect all of us.
Yeah, in big ways and small ways.
Exactly. It's fascinating how everything is kind of connected.
Yeah.
You know, you've got these global supply chains and government policies and consumer products, and they're all kind of intertwined.
And they're all changing so rapidly.
It's hard to keep up.
It is, but that's what we're here for.
Exactly, to help you connect the dots. All right, well, that's all the time we have for today, but thanks for joining us. And remember, we are here to help here at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions. All right, see you next time.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.